We told you first, and now it's official. The task force on the National Infrastructure Pipeline has submitted its report to the Finance Minister in a fresh impetus to the infrastructure sector. The panel has recommended projects worth 102 lakh crore rupees spread across 18 states and union territories. Now, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has said that 63% of these projects have already been firmed up. These projects are spread across 22 ministries, and the government will issue an annual supplementary report every year detailing the status of these projects. Now, the infrastructure project pipeline will focus on areas including power, railways, irrigation, health, water, education, mobility, as well as the digital sector. Now, giving out details on the current status of these projects, the Finance Minister said that projects worth 42.7 lakh crore rupees are under implementation, while projects worth 32.7 lakh crore rupees have been conceptualized, and projects worth 19 lakh crores are under detailed project planning stage. Now, the infrastructure pipeline will have 39% participation from the centre, 39% from the states, and 22% from the private sector.
After the announcement was made, the task force was formed. Now, today they have come up with, for the 100 lakh crore that we had committed, 102 lakh crore worth of projects. And these projects spread across 22 ministries and 18 states and union territories. Government is looking at interacting with states and making sure that that is really pepped up so that we rank well on it. But also recent concerns about states which are reviewing or reconsidering, and on that angle, there's also a sudden anxiety about which both centre and states are talking to each other.
So that's likely to give an impetus to the infrastructure sector. But 2019 has drawn to a close on Dalal Street, and the final session of this decade ended with losses of nearly 1%. But this has been a year where the Sensex and the Nifty scaled new peaks, even as mid-caps and small-caps underperformed. Now, today the Sensex lost over 300 points and the Nifty fell below the 12,200 mark. Bank stocks also tumbled, but the mid-cap index managed to hold its head above water. So that was the day in a nutshell, but how has Dalal Street fared this year? Who were the big gainers and who were the big losers? Manglam Malu is here to wrap up the market action for the year. Manglam, take it away.
Absolutely. So this year has been a gain of 12% for the frontline index, the Nifty. Not as bad as the previous year where we gained about 3%, but not as good as the year prior to that where we gained 29% as well. But this year has been a narrow gainer. Nifty Bank was a stark outperformer, while stark underperformance came in from the mid-cap index as well as the small-cap index. As the years ended, let's take note of some important days. On May 20th, when the exit poll was announced, we saw a gain of 420 points on the Nifty, but then thereafter, after the budget, the FPI surcharge issues took the Nifty back by 250 points on July 8th. But then came the tax cut announcement on September 20th, a 569-point gain followed by a 326-point gain in the next couple of days. But this year has been a year of big gains for a handful of stocks. Of the 1,300 points that the Nifty gained this year, 85% gains were purely on account of Reliance, ICICI Bank, HDFC Twins and Kotak Mahindra Bank. That's how narrow this year was in terms of stock performance. The key draggers, of course, were ITC, M&M and Yes Bank. So let's talk about the big gainers. We've had Bajaj Finance topping the list alongside Bharti Airtel, 58% gains out there. Bajaj Finserv not doing too badly as well. And Reliance also touched that 10 lakh crore in terms of market cap. This year has been a year of quality stocks as well. So the private sector banks, the likes of ICICI Bank, Kotak Mahindra, Axis Bank as well as HDFC Bank putting in big gains, and also quality FMCG stocks, the likes of Nestle, Asian Paints, Titan, HUL. ITC was an underperformer out there. But if you got your stock wrong, you would have lost a fair amount of money, and that's what we saw in a whole host of these stocks. The likes of Yes Bank, Z, M&M. Auto sector wasn't the best performer all through this year. GAIL as well, down by about a third of its market cap being eroded. This year also saw big gains in a handful of mid-cap stocks. While the mid-cap index underperformed by and large, we had stocks like Manappuram, SRF, IGL, Berger Paints and Bata put on big gains as well. But then again, there were a whole host of stocks that lost a fair amount of money. The likes of Vodafone Idea, Dish TV, Indiabulls Housing Finance, Glenmark as well as RBL Bank. To sum it up, we can call it the year of contradictions. For every ICICI Bank which gained 50%, we had Yes Bank which lost about 70%. 75%. For every Kotak Bank that gained 34%, we had RBL Bank that lost about 40%. The same can be said in the telecom space and the FMCG space as well, where Bharti Airtel gained about 50%, Vodafone Idea lost 73%, and we saw Nestle gain 33% and ITC lose 16%.
Right, so a year of contrast depending on where you were invested. You would have either gained or lost. Many thanks, Mangalam, for getting us all those details. Now, the government will be inviting expressions of interest for Air India in the next few weeks. That's the word coming in from Hardeep Singh Puri, the aviation minister. Now, addressing a press conference today, Puri said that the government was trying to privatize the Maharaja as quickly as possible. He said that there have been substantial interest shown by private entities and established airlines as well. Now, remember, so far, the government's attempts to find a buyer for the cash-strapped airline has failed to take off. This time, though, the government intends to hive off its entire stake in Air India. Anu Sharma joins us with the details from there. Anu, you were there at the press conference today. What else did Hardeep Singh Puri say?
Well, there are some initial hopes from the second attempt at Air India's divestment today. Aviation Minister Hardeep Singh Puri, he clarified that several entities have come forward and shown interest in buying Air India. He did not name those companies, but there are some hopes from the second round of Air India's divestment, and the government expects to float the EOI, the expression of interest, in the next few weeks. Before that, the alternative mechanism, which is a panel of ministers formed to oversee the process under the leadership of Home Minister Amit Shah, that panel is expected to meet in the next week or so before the EOI is floated. Aviation Secretary Pradeep Singh Kharola also clarified that as per Aircraft Act and rules, the effective control and substantial ownership of airlines in India has to stay with Indian nationals, and thereby FDI in airlines in India cannot exceed 49%, and that rule will be applicable when the government divests Air India, and the process begins in the next few weeks once the EOI is invited. Other than that, the minister also said that the airline is making losses to the tune of 25 to 26 crore rupees every day, but it remains an asset. The problem is largely with the business model, and the solution is that it has to be privatized, and that is the way the government has chosen to take forward as far as Air India is concerned.
एयर इंडिया चल रही है, एयर इंडिया चलती रहेगी, पर एयर इंडिया को प्राइवेटाइज करना होगा. 20 से 26 करोड़ रुपए का दिन का is the loss, okay? So this is taxpayers' money which can be more profitably spent, but it is a very good asset, and we are now in a serious process of privatization.
And from aviation to telecom, where the much anticipated trials for the next generation 5G network are all set to kick off soon. We learned from our sources in the telecom department that the government will allocate spectrum in January. The government has allowed all equipment manufacturers, including Huawei, to participate in the 5G trials. Ashmit Kumar joins us now with the details from there. Ashmit, can you tell us some more about what's being planned?
Right, so just yesterday we had reported that the telecom minister announced that spectrum will be allocated to all the telecom players for conducting 5G trials. And not only that, we also picked up from sources that as far as Huawei is concerned, despite the pressure being exerted by the United States, the Indian government, especially the DOT, has decided to give the green signal to Huawei to come in and participate as a part of the 5G trials. Now, following that today, just 24 hours later, we understand that the DOT, a panel of DOT led by the telecom secretary, held discussions and deliberations with various stakeholders, including the three top private telcos, which is Reliance Jio, Vodafone, as well as Bharti Airtel. And not just that, the vendors were also present, all the major ones, Ericsson, Nokia, as well as Huawei, after getting the nod, were in fact present as a part of these consultations. What sources tell us is that the government is in the mood to fast-track this entire process, is hopeful of sticking to its deadline, and in pursuance of that, what we understand is that a decision has been firmed up that spectrum will be allocated for a duration of 1 month, but importantly, it will be allocated in the month of January itself. There are further modalities that need to be worked out. The telcos will be apprised of that as and when the DOT finalizes a position, but importantly, a decision has been arrived at to go ahead and to allocate this spectrum in the month of January itself for allowing a 5G trial. So again, important development this on the path to 5G rollout here in India.
Right, absolutely, Ashwin. Many thanks for joining us. But that moves not without controversy. The Swadeshi Jagran Manch, the economic wing of the RSS, has shot off a letter to Prime Minister Narendra Modi criticizing the government's decision to allow Huawei to participate in that upcoming 5G trial. Now, the letter highlights that the presence of Huawei, a Chinese company, in the 5G trials would compromise national security. Now, further, the letter also points out that there is in fact ample evidence that raise suspicion that Chinese companies indulge in stealing massive amounts of military and technological secrets and share intelligence with their government. On that note, we'll slip into a short break, but coming up on the other side, the Bank of India has ended over 1% higher